Welcome back after lunch, folks. I hope everyone's had something good to eat and a coffee to keep you going for the rest of the afternoon. So we're into our last couple of sessions now, and I'm looking forward to some more great talks here. Keep those tweets coming through. The prize this afternoon is going to be for the one, and we keep the questions coming through, they're great. The prize this afternoon is going to be for the one who gives us the best idea of how Dubbo can take advantage of the NBN when we get connected, which isn't that far away. So keep the various tweets coming about the speakers as they're talking, keep the questions coming through, but the best idea, and if it's good enough, then I'll go and steal it and I'll say it's my idea, we'll go forward with it from there. But just keep those ideas coming through. The next speaker, most of you would be aware, it's been in the media a lot over the last couple of years, that the CSIRO gets just a little bit in terms of royalties from every Wi-Fi device that's created around the world. Well, that's a fantastic show of Australian innovation. And the next speaker that we have was the chief research scientist that led and helped patent the technology that's basically in all those high-speed Wi-Fi devices. It's delivered about $400 million in royalties to the CSIRO. So fantastic for Australia, fantastic for innovation, but also fantastic for the team that were part of that. And obviously the next speaker was a major part of that. That won the next speaker the European Inventor of the Year Award in 2012, so a fairly prestigious award. He's also had a good background in the CSIRO with telehealth and created the first virtual healthcare or virtual critical care unit in Katoomba when he linked up Katoomba through to Sydney with an optic fibre connection. So certainly well aware of the possibilities around telehealth. He no longer works at CSIRO, he's now the Director of Broadband and the Digital Economy with NICTA, and what we'll hear today is something that's very close to my heart, talking about the connected home. And I know when I built my current home 14 years ago, I used Clipsal C-Bus, home automation, did everything I could to create the connected home. Some of that technology is a little bit old now, but I'm certainly looking forward to hearing about the connected home and about how that can apply to small business. So please make him welcome, Dr. Terry Percival.
Thank you very much, and it's a great pleasure to be back in Dubbo. What I wanted to talk to you about today was just some of the things that we see might be possible for the home and for small business when the NBN rolls out. There's been a lot of talk about all sorts of things, but that's what I want to concentrate on. So we'll just start off a little bit introduction, if I may. If Glenn can put it up on the screen, fantastic. NICTA is not a household name. The CSIRO, where I worked for many years, was. NICTA is a new kid on the block, set up 10 years ago as a publicly funded not-for-profit company to commercialise ICT research out of our universities. We have 17 universities as members of National ICT Australia, and we take that research and we get it out there, both in Australia and around the world. So where we are, there are 700 of us now. About 300 of those are postgraduate students, mostly doing PhDs. There's 400 spread around the country. We have 2 research laboratories in Sydney. We have 1 in Canberra, 1 in Melbourne, and a small one in Brisbane. And we connect a lot of people together doing high-level research. The way we organise ourselves is into what we call business teams, and we have 4 of those. Obviously, there's broadband and digital economy, which I lead, which is what we're all about today. But the other areas, although we call them something different, really are about the digital economy. We do a lot of work in what we call smart infrastructure and logistics, and this is about optimising the way our infrastructure works, be it smart grids for the electricity, transport, trucking companies, port operations, maintaining our infrastructure such as bridges. We have put sensor networks on things like the Sydney Harbour Bridge and other bridges to monitor them and make sure we get the best use out of them and the least amount of maintenance. We do a lot of work in security, biosecurity. We have people looking at using hyperspectral imaging to detect diseases and pests in crops. That's also used for detecting defects in infrastructure. And we do a lot of work in defence security systems and cyber security. Finally, health. We actually don't work in telehealth in National ICT Australia, but we do a lot of work in implant systems. So we've developed a system that is just undergone some human trials of pain relief by putting electrodes in spines of people who have severe chronic pain issues, and we've just funded that company outside with a $5 million research injection from a company that started life out as a home loan company. That's another story. And we're also part of the Bionic Eye Institute that's building new next generation bionic eyes. So it's all digital, but that's where we do it. And we build on a lot of research out of universities, research in software systems, research in machine learning or artificial intelligence, research in optimization, obviously optimizing things like power grids, computer vision, which is important not only in things like the Bionic Eye, but also important for managing our infrastructure, counting cars, detecting trucks, that sort of thing. We also have work in control and signal processing, controlling processes, controlling traffic flows, and finally networks, which is, I guess, much more important today for this conference. Just finally some achievements. You heard a bit earlier about Wi-Fi in 3 billion mobile devices. NICTA took out of the University of New South Wales a microkernel operating system. Microkernel is the thing that boots first when you switch your phone on or your computer. It's the thing that just starts to, you might see these funny little messages. That's the thing that sets up before the operating system kicks in. We were able to commercialise that technology, and if you own an Android phone or other phones except for a Nokia phone, then you're using our software. It's 1.5 billion, I think at last count it was actually 1.8 billion devices use this technology. Digital audio networking. This gentleman here, sitting down, you may recognise that blazer as the MCC. He's at Lord's. He doesn't know it. He'd hate to know, but when he's watching the Ashes next time round, all the PA announcements are coming from Australian technology, the digital audio networking technology that we've sold around the world. So that's used at Lord's Cricket Ground, it was used at St Paul's Cathedral, it's used at the Papal Mass at Randwick, it's used by Barbara Streisand. So it's certainly got a wide variety of fans. We also work with Australian industry to improve things. The digital economy, a really good example is mortgage broking. About 3 years ago, we worked with the lending industry with a thing called the XML initiative, where they wanted to put the whole mortgage brokering business online, and it changed the time to get a mortgage approval from 3 days to 15 minutes. And that saves the mortgage industry $50 million a year. So that's an example of the digital economy where you can actually get significant savings and improvement in productivity. Fleet logistics, we worked with George Weston, you probably know them better as Tip Top Bakeries, on looking at how to better distribute their bread from the bakeries, how many trucks they needed, what size trucks, what route they should go, all around New South Wales and Queensland, and we basically saved 8% of their transport costs, which may not sound like a lot, but when your transport costs are $100 million a year, 8% is a really good saving. So that's some of our achievements, and of course skills. We've got already 300 of our postgraduate students are out there working in the industry. Enough of the advertisement. I'm also here representing the Australian Centre for Broadband Innovation, which is a joint research collaboration between the CSIRO, the New South Wales Government and NICTA, and the next speaker, Jeff Hayden, will talk a bit more about what goes on in the Australian Centre for Broadband Innovation, but we're involved in some of those activities. I'm going to talk with some examples of things you might find useful for you when the NBN comes along. I have to have a disclaimer that I don't endorse anything in particular. I've just pulled things that I know. There are lots more things out there, and I apologise to any company present who I left out. But I'm just trying to give you a feeling for what's going to happen. So, first of all, the big questions. And these are some questions I asked as a researcher in broadband many years ago. After I stopped doing wireless research, when we sort of sorted those problems, we then looked at broadband and what you would do with it. So the first question I ask people is, what would you do if bandwidth was free and infinite? Now, I knew I was on a winner here because when I used to say that at conferences, people would suddenly shuffle in their feet and get very red in the face, and they were generally people from Telstra and Optus. So they said, no, that's our business model. We charge people for bandwidth. And I kept arguing, no, you should be charging people for services. So is it infinite? Well, compared to 19.2 kilobits, what we're getting now is close to infinite. Is it free? Well, I'll give you an example in a second. You're still paying, but compared to what you were paying for something like that 15 years ago, it's pretty minimal cost, really. So the other thing that I raised yesterday in Business Forum is it's ubiquitous. Everything is connected and everybody is connected. So imagine you could connect to anything, anybody, anywhere on the planet. When I said it was free, I dug up a while ago my Telstra bill from, I think it's 1995, I can't quite read the writing, and interesting to see there's a few calls, international calls I was making to some colleagues I was working with at the time in Colorado and Massachusetts, and the price for a 39-second phone call was 95 cents, the price for an 18-minute phone call was $24. If you put that into today's dollars, you probably have to double that. So you're talking about maybe $2.50 a minute. Nowadays, when I make an international phone call to the US, I do it via Skype with video, and it doesn't cost me more than about $0.01 a minute if you look at my plan. So is bandwidth free? Well, it's pretty close compared to the prices I was paying for international phone calls, and you can tell by the duration of those calls that I was very conscious of the cost. So I think bandwidth is almost free and almost infinite. My vision for an NBN world is the first thing is it's scalable. If you suddenly discover you want more bandwidth because of what you're doing, you just make a phone call, you don't make a phone call, you click on a website and it gets upgraded to 50, 100 or 250 or 1 gigabit per second. The other thing is this one pipe comes into your home, and something no one's really talked about yet, and this gets complicated but it's worth noting, is one pipe comes into your home, but you can have multiple different service providers on that one pipe, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Bandwidth is symmetrical. You can have almost as much going up as you have coming down. That's very important for a lot of applications for business. It's available in homes, it's available in SMEs, it's available in government offices, it's available to utilities, it's available to every single public infrastructure, public spaces. In Singapore is very interesting. They're rolling out a fibre national broadband network, and they're putting fibre into every park. They're putting Wi-Fi hotspots attached to the fibre in all their parks, all their statues. So there's that whole sort of different area of things you're talking to, every traffic light. I guess that's not a problem in Dubbo, but certainly it is in Sydney. You want to have all your traffic control systems smart. So really, and if you looked at the business areas that NICTA was involved in my earlier slide, the whole economy is based on data transfer. It may be about moving physical goods about, but it's all done digitally, the control, the optimisation. So what the NBN will give Australia is a one-speed, super-fast digital economy. So the NBN underpins all these areas. I'm going to concentrate on the last three on that list, government, business and home. There's other talks this afternoon that will concentrate on the other areas. I want to go back a bit and talk about the evolution of the World Wide Web as we know it. Tim Berners-Lee created the World Wide Web. We used to call it the World Wide Wait, because when you were on a 19.2 dial-up modem, it was felt like that. The World Wide Web was really about just viewing documents. They invented this at CERN, where they were trying to share documents between collaborating researchers in this big research institute. So it's about viewing static documents using the hypertext markup language, and the documents were coded in this thing called XML, Extensible Markup Language.